Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Inshallah, our discussion today is about Islamic intellectual discourse responding Orientalist misconception on Islam. The religion of Islam has been a subject of extensive interest in the discourse of Orientalism. It's worth to note that while a significant number of Orientalists have presented distorted views on Islam, we must still recognize that there exists some unbiasedly objective work by certain Orientalists on Islam. Those who possess such narrow-minded, ill-concluded opinions on Islam, on the contrary, extend their subject of criticism beyond the fundamentals of Islam to every element pertaining to Islamic tradition, often resulting in unnecessarily biased projection. Our particular discussion will explore how Islamic discourse address Orientalist misconception on Islam. We shall delve into the critical arguments of some prominent Muslim figures in their defense against the conjectured accusations of those perverted-minded Orientalists. Two influential Muslim scholars will be the main subject of this discussion. We will first introduce the view of Mustafa as-Sibai and his criticism of Orientalism. Then, we will discuss the viewpoint of Mustafa al-A'zami concerning Orientalism. Their respective points of view will be analyzed. Before discussing as-Sibai's condemnation on Orientalism, it would be insightful first to explore his biography. Born in 1915 in the former part of the Syrian Imperial Ottoman Empire, as-Sibai is recognized as a prominent contemporary scholar and politician. In addition to primarily engaging in the academic life of the Azharites, he also actively participated in political movements seeking to implement Islamic laws in the state affairs. Being a disciple of Hassan al-Banna, his membership in the Muslim Brotherhood was much to be expected. In fact, he was the one who would later be responsible for the foundation of the Syrian branch of Egypt's Islamic Brotherhood. Having died in 1964, his works remain significant to contemporary discourse. As-Sibai identified that the primary objectives of Orientalism in the Islamic world are, for instance, to cause and entrench some element of confusion in Islamic discipline of knowledge, to question the authenticity of Islamic primary sources and the fundamental ruling of Sharia, to question the compatibility of the Arabic language in the development of modern sciences, to awaken Muslims' confidence and to articulate a sense of skepticism in the certainty of the established Islamic intellectual tradition. As-Sibai clearly indicates that the Orientalist misconceptions, or rather deliberative, intentional and methodically calculated conceptions, are predominantly driven by the aforementioned objectives. As-Sibai presents that the reality of Orientalism as an organized scheme to deceive the religion of Islam and its fundamental essences. Imam Mustafa as-Sibai's masterpiece, Sunnah, and its role in Islamic legislation is perhaps the most critical works pertaining to his assessment of Orientalists, in particular Ignaz Goldziher. Goldziher, in his work Muslim Studies, criticized many aspects of Islam, including the allegation that the Hadith is an invention of scholars during the period of Islamic advancement rather than a narration from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The claim suggests that the first generation of Islam following the death of the prophets was still in the stage of infancy. In response, as-Sibai argues that Islam, following the demise of the Prophet ﷺ, is already perfected. His claim is supported with a detailed contextual historical narrative. Not to mention, he also proposes the methodology of muhaddithin, which means hadith experts, suggesting an impossibility of hadith fabrication. Another significant contemporary Muslim figure in the discourse of Orientalism is Mustafa al-A'zami. Possessing a stance identical to As-Sibai, al-A'zami was undoubtedly a staunch commentator on Orientalist scholar. Muhammad Mustafa al-A'zami was born in 1930 and died recently in 2017. He had an established academic background and was also a contemporary scholar of hadith. Perhaps his influence on the modern discourse of Islamic knowledge, particularly science of hadith, is so significant that he is dubbed as the defender of Sunnah. Moreover, he was also awarded the 1980s King Faisal International Prize for his contribution. Among his major works in Islamic studies, specifically in hadith, studies in hadith methodology and literature, and studies in early hadith literature. These two definitive works embody al-A'zami's well-constructed understanding of the fundamentals of hadith studies. Similar to the previous case of As-Sibai, al-A'zami's too asserts his sound judgment and criticism to Godziha, stressing the flaws of the premises that form the backdrop of the misconceptions concluded by those misguided Orientalists. Al-A'zami's critical and methodical approach is obvious, hence earning him the rightfully deserved authority to speak in this field, especially in counter-arguing the false conceptions of Orientalism. Such a claim that is projected within the strands of Orientalists, which was mentioned previously, is the ill-natured claim of hadith fabrication. Following the path of Al-Sibai, al-A'zami's too opposed the notion that the narration of hadith was deliberately fabricated after the demise of the Prophet ﷺ. He argued that the Prophet's companions who narrated and wrote hadith directly from the Prophet, such as Abu Hurairah, Anas ibn Malik, Ibn Umar, and other companions, are the chief evidence that the hadith is not a new something crafted by successive generations of Muslims. Moreover, al-A'zami too observed that the Orientalists' inability to establish a contextual understanding of Islamic historicity. He disproved the Orientalists' unfounded assumptions and demonstrated how hadith were authentically collected and written. We have explored the views and critiques of our great scholars on the Orientalist misguided narrative on Islam. Now, let's analyze the thoughts of As-Sibai and al-A'zami. From reflecting their points, we can deduce that their counter-criticism on the scholars of Orientalism manifests the very sincerity of their intention. They unquestionably exhibited an objective stance in their analysis. Both As-Sibai and al-A'zami critically address how the claims of Orientalists are indeed in a state of total ignorance while engaging with Islamic knowledge and tradition. In their respective evaluations on Orientalism, they emphasize that decisive and definitive failure of Orientalists to establish an accurate, reliable, and objective understanding of Islamic contextual frames of reference or themes. Their analysis and critique of Orientalism provide us with an insightful realization that the attitude of certain Orientalists is not always objectively oriented, but rather motivated by a sense of enmity or is sophomoric at best. Such Orientalists share a similar trait among themselves, especially in the manifestation of their overconfidence in their immature knowledge, while at the same time remaining unaware of their own limitations or complexity of contextual perspectives. Most of them are pretentious or conceited, showing great knowledge or sophistication. However, their understanding is actually based on incomplete or immature information, which at the end of the day is still objectively meaningless. Now, let's conclude our discussion. Hence, it could be considered that the Orientalist conclusions, therefore, for the most part, are built upon the basis of conjecture, misinterpretation, and incoherent arguments. Their weak findings only prove their weaknesses in fathoming the well-grounded Islamic tradition of authentic chain of knowledge, a concept unbeknownst to the Western intellectual world. Islamic discourse, such as the work of great scholars Imam As-Sibai and Al-Azami, manifest that most Orientalists often ignore the contextual understanding, only seeking for obvious and instant patterns to support their ill-intentioned hypothesis, resulting in the neglect of in-depth inspection. Contemporary Islamic discourse challenges such misconceptions and stereotypes, urging for deeper investigation and accurate validation in understanding Islam. Well then, my friend, thank you for watching. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.